Well, welcome to this special Raconteur Roundtable sponsored by Hitachi Solutions, looking at why professional services companies must invest in digital transformation. This roundtable discussion is part of Raconteur's Agile Business Report, which will appear in the Times on March the 24th. My name is Steve Hemsley. I'm a business journalist and I will be your host for today's roundtable. Delighted to welcome on our panel a few experts to talk about this subject. We have Chris Knowles, who is Chief Digital Officer at RSM UK, Dan Guest, Chief Operations and Commercial Officer Technical Services at Mighty, Tom Ames Cull, who is Global COO Media at Dentsu International, and Amy Smart, Digital Transformation Partner at Grant Thornton UK, and also Simon Drake, who's SVP and UK General Manager at Hitachi Solutions. Welcome to you all. Thank you very much for spending your time with us this afternoon to really help other people who are going to be watching this roundtable and listening learn more about your digital transformation journey as companies, and what sort of advice I suppose you could share that you've learnt over time. Really, I just wanted to start with you, Chris, if I could, looking at the business benefits of investing in digital, whether they've been quite obvious and came quite quickly, and then maybe we can talk about some of the pain points. I mean, are there obvious business benefits that you notice sort of almost immediately, I suppose?
I think there are, and of course, digital transformation covers such a broad range of business objectives and benefits, including in this sector, professional services, Steve. I mean, things have really come home to roost over the last couple of years with COVID and the need for everyone to be working with digital technology and working remotely. But I think when we think about the specific technologies that professional services firms are investing in at the moment, whether that be analytics, automation, client portals, things like that, if you plan it well, and you particularly think about end user adoption and the impact of introducing these technologies on your professional fee earning staff, then you can deliver benefits quickly. Yes. We ourselves have really had a big investment push around analytics, for instance, and within a matter of months, we had really good adoption and we were seeing new client wins and new client benefits coming through. So I think it depends on the circumstance, but with the right focus on adoption and end user skills, you can definitely reap the benefits quickly.
And was there much pushback, I suppose, internally about the investment that was needed, that the fact you need the speed at which you needed to go when it came to transforming digitally? Because everyone on this panel and companies generally are on that journey some way, aren't they? Nobody's not doing anything digital. How important has that been to get that sort of buy-in?
The buy-in was fairly easy to achieve in terms of the investment level, Steve. I wouldn't say there was resistance, but there was more thought given when it came to the realization that actually it would take a lot of time from our people to go through the training and upskilling to be able to use these tools properly. And of course, in our sectors, every time away on training is an hour away from chargeable fee earning work potentially. So I think just making it clear to our service line heads and our fee earning staff that actually this is an investment in time that is well worth it. So not so much in terms of the licensing, the hardware, but more I think that education about it takes time to get to develop these skills, that's where I think some thought is really required. How do you free up people to get the skills they need there? And that can be as we've done, universal data literacy training, which is just a couple of hours for everybody, all the way up to more advanced master's level training in analytics, which obviously takes months or years. But I think it's the investment of time as much as software and hardware that requires thought and planning and commitment.
Yeah, I would bring you in, Dan, for Mighty, if I could. I mean, Chris mentioned a couple of interesting things about planning there. I suppose before you do this investment, isn't it about planning what you're going to do, and then obviously education internally about what the improvements are going to be and why you need to invest in digital as a professional services company? How important has planning been, and how important is it?
Yeah, I mean, Chris touched on it, but the people side of any transformation is massive, whether it's technology or not. And really engaging people at the start, understanding why, as you say, what's the driver for the investment, what we're trying to get out of it, how will that benefit our customers, how will it benefit the people that we're trying to influence or trying to impact to enable them to be more effective in their job or to kind of offer something different to the customers. So all of that upfront planning to understand it, obviously to write the business case in the first place, to get the investment needed is crucial, but also communicating that to people, sharing that information up front so that people come with you on the journey, whether that's your own staff or the customers, is pretty crucial, particularly for our type of industry where it doesn't always have a direct impact, or you can't always translate that direct impact to your business. You've got to sell that on to another business.
Yeah. Were there obvious pain points for you, Dan, within the business that you thought actually this is obvious way to solve it, or was it clear, or was it just that you thought actually there's efficiencies here, we've seen other people do it? What were there obvious advantages straight away and problems to solve?
Yeah, we looked at how we can use other industries' technologies into professional services. So, we took things that we can see working in other areas like logistics or other industries and brought them forward. So we know they could work. It's how we then translated that and articulated that to our teams so that people could see the benefits. So, that first point, yes, it was easy to be able to do that because we could show how it would work in other industries. I think there's always some skepticism around it doesn't fit our world, and obviously you have to take people on that journey as well. But we overcame that and we got good traction.
Yeah, Amy, at Grant Thornton, I mean, in terms of pain points, and we'll get on later about how the value to clients and everything, but for Grant Thornton itself, were there obvious pain points that that people thought, look, we need to invest in digital, and did that mean that the investment came quicker because that there was an obvious need?
I think, change is always hard and it's always painful, and I know this has been talked about a lot, but the impact of COVID that had, and any of the laggards that weren't necessarily wanting to change and were calling out the pain points, all of a sudden, overnight they had to transform. And we were pushing out rollouts that we were getting through within weeks, where previously we know they would have taken years to get that level of adoption and buy-in. So I think the pain points have now been substantially eased based on where we are today and the experiences that we've been through.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. So do you think without the pandemic that you would have made that sort of a transformation as fast? No, you wouldn't. No.
Absolutely no chance. It was real, made a big difference.
Yeah. Was that the same for you, Tom, at Dentsu? I mean, that actually the pandemic has maybe speeded things up, and has it created maybe different pain points that other companies who listening to this might experience the same thing?
Yeah, I think the pandemic has definitely given us further impetus to accelerate. I mean, the transformation that we're on is multi-year, and was started before the pandemic, but the kind of extra factors of that drives, I think, definitely made a case for us accelerating a number of those elements. I think there are, I guess, the pros and cons, like everything, to doing transformation through the pandemic. In terms of pain points, one of the things that I think we've reflected on as being a real pain point and a challenge of trying to do digital transformation through a pandemic is the inability to get our teams together as frequently as you would do perhaps during a transformation 2-3 years ago. The classic way of getting people into a room, building your change kind of champions and networks, demoing the new tools, building the advocacy, and getting that cultural and people element. Chris and Dan talked about people already. That becomes much harder when you're trying to change people's behaviors, people's ways of working, the tools that people are using. If you're limited to Zoom or Teams and doing things in virtual rooms, we're a global business. We've got people dotted around the world, and we are trying to deploy new digital platforms around these teams. That is just logistically and culturally much harder during a pandemic when you can't get out to those teams and you can't drive that change in ways that you would have done perhaps 2 or 3 years ago. So I think there is an interesting kind of view there on the people aspect.
Yeah, I mean, Simon, from what you've heard so far, and I mean, speeding up, making things more efficient, the pandemic means there's more that sort of global reaction, faster reaction, more consistency. We can talk a bit about culture, but have you heard anything that resonates with what your experience has been, Simon?
Yeah, very much so. I particularly picked up on Amy's comment around the pull and the push of any change, and there was a definite push around the changes that came from COVID. Now, if we look at some of the industries that as professional services organizations we work within. Notably public sector were making decisions in days rather than months or even years. And because at that time they also had very common needs in certain areas, if you looked at something like the management of vulnerable people, they all came to the market with very rapid decision making and very, all at the same time, parallel requirements for support. And I think as a professional services industry, that gave us all sorts of issues ourselves around how do we improve our own efficiencies? How do we take what we do and be able to replicate it very, very quickly? And how can we use all of the tool sets? How can we use cloud technology to be able to deploy that really rapidly and in a very consistent fashion, whilst respecting each client's individual needs? So the pandemic drove a lot of opportunity, but it meant we also had to change very, very quickly how we engaged.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Talk about how it's helped the businesses. But what about, Simon? What about other things like, I don't know, using digital to get a competitive advantage? Maybe if you were the ones who reacted faster in this current situation, became a leader rather than a follower. Are there obvious competitive advantages of investing in digital?
Gosh, from the even outside of the pandemic, I think a lot of these things, they can be either large and strategic, but they can also be culturally. You can prove things by either failing fast or just using quite small examples. So, I mean, something that came to mind to myself not that long ago was how we moved from, and we helped drive our customers towards electronic signature. Now, we all take that mostly for granted now, but if you think as a professional services business, if you can get an e-signature from somebody who's on the train rather than waiting for them to go home or find a printer or scan something, you're either reducing your work at risk exposure or you are starting work earlier, which is better for the client and better for our revenues. So there are lots of illustrative examples to Chris's point around how do you get people to really look forward to the change. We can use things that we now take for granted as examples and say, that's a small but important element of digital transformation, and let's look for other opportunities that are in some cases that simple.
I agree, Simon, if I may. And I think that electronic signatures is a stepping stone to professional services firms beginning to work with their clients more substantially online versus more traditional means, email, face-to-face, etc. I think that's definitely a trend we're seeing, across the accounting sector, across the wider professional services sector, Steve, legal sector as well. I know we don't have any lawyers here today, but absolutely that's a sector that's moving online. You think about conveyancing, where it was 15, 20 years ago to where it is now, that is now substantially online. And I think that's a big trend that actually our sector, the broader professional services and business services sector, has been somewhat late to when you consider B2C businesses and how quickly they've moved online. And I think really thinking how we add value to clients digitally, online, changing the interactions between fee earners and clients online is a trend that is starting, but I think is really going to accelerate in the coming years personally.
Yeah.
We also see that from our perspective, and I think the shift to our clients wanting to transact with us and work with us online via kind of client portals and kind of various tools that we've then built to manage workflow has definitely accelerated. And what we've actually seen as well is that becomes a catalyst to then change how our teams internally work. As we start to move more of our client interactions through online portals and facilitating our client briefing and our client kind of responses through digital platforms, that obviously means that the data is being ingested into our teams and our tools in a better way, which allows us to have a more seamless workflow across our own agency group. And that then has a positive impact on our people's experiences too. So actually, it's been a really interesting catalyst to see how the change in client working then has a knock-on impact on how our teams work and the data that we capture and all the things that you can then do on top of that once you've got the data in the right place.
Yeah, Amy, did you think professional services has maybe been, I don't know, a bit late to the party here, but actually now it's probably accelerating, maybe moving faster than some sectors because it sees the benefit to its people? And Tom was talking about data there and that. I mean, what about that whole thing about whether maybe professional services has like woken up really to the benefits of digital?
Yeah, I really have seen a big shift and kind of continually looking at, as consumers, how we're interacting with businesses. And you've got the omnichannel experience and the stuff you can do on your phone these days. And then you go and interact with your kind of your professional services company and they're saying, oh, well, can you email me a spreadsheet over, and kind of we'll spend a few weeks looking at that data. And kind of that real shift to actually know we're consuming data kind of a lot more real time, we're providing live insights back to clients and kind of unlocking benchmarking information across our client base to really help unlock value to clients in a quite a different way and an evolving way at the moment.
Yeah, and Dan, I mean, I suppose we're talking a lot about the people and how it's helped the people be more efficient, work more effectively, smarter. Have people's, before we go on to the client value argument, but has it raised people's expectations, would you say, internally about what they can do and what they're expected to do and how they work?
Yeah, I think the point made earlier about things have been accelerated. Everybody's adapted and moved quickly, and particularly B2C environments have moved quickly to be able to engage with customers, and that's made people have a much higher expectation of their employer, of their workplace, of whatever their engagement is. You know, people want to be able to get to the office if they need to go, or be able to work remotely if they don't. They need to, you know, have that physical workplace that is adaptable and flexible to them. So there's lots of expectations. It needs to be safe, they need to be protected. So all of these things can be done digitally through technology, but obviously physically as well. And the instant response that we all now need to give to every message that pops up on our laptop or anywhere else is the same kind of expectation. People want an instant response to every problem because they've experienced it for the last few years. That's really put pressure on all industries, but particularly in our world, I think.
Have you noticed, I'll ask maybe a few of you this question, has it changed the culture internally, and has everybody benefited from that? You know, your colleagues, clients, has it meant a change of culture, do you think?
Yeah, for us, we've seen definitely we've had to adapt and be more flexible, because one, you want to attract people into the workplace, and therefore people's expectations being different, want a different employee offer. But same for our customers. If we're going to support our customers, we need to enable them to do the same. So we've got a whole range of customers that would expect either a workplace to be available, the digital tools to enable them to do the job. So I think everybody's culture's changed a little bit to enable people to kind of return, but in a completely different way than we were working before the pandemic.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else wants to come in on that culture piece. Yeah, Simon. Yeah.
I think culturally that doing things quickly and digitally, it's helped encourage a prototyping or a failing fast and learning and moving on culture, perhaps more than the more traditional structured ways of doing things, because you can create proofs of concept digitally much more quickly with the right skills and the range of platforms that you can do that on now. Some of the tool sets that get brought by the technologists to try and use and show those value really quickly. That's helped people feel more empowered to take a few risks in a fairly safe environment and try things out and learn from it. And I think that's spread to customers as well, back to the prior comments around speed of decision making. I think previously quite conservative clients can see that in a matter of days you can spin something up, you can try it out, you can see if it's going to offer some value or fix some issues. But if it doesn't, it hasn't been a huge investment. It doesn't mean you don't try that again. And I think it's improved the creative thinking of a lot of people as a result.
Yeah, is that your experience, Tom, as well, that clients are noticing that sort of more risk taking? I mean, as in your sort of business, there's a lot of data, but also I suppose there's a lot of creative thinking as well.
Yeah, I think that for us an important kind of add is that part of our transformation, aside from our digital platforms, is going through a process of rationalizing our brands. So going from more than 60 different brands around the world down to 6 in our media business. So culturally, that has a huge impact. And what we're finding is that the digital investment and the digital transformation as part of that is a great enabler or great kind of Trojan horse, I guess, because what it allows you to do is connect up your teams in different ways and to perhaps reduce some of the kind of the silos and borders that existed between the entities that we had before. And that undoubtedly then is one part of the cultural shift we see in our business. And yes, that then means that we can have kind of more seamless teaming between our different business units and also with our clients. And I think that ultimately means that you get a faster more agile, more creative response, because your teams are focusing on those activities, and become more nimble in how they respond, and that gets baked into a culture.
Yeah, Amy, I don't know if your clients want you to be more risk taking, but in terms of what you can demonstrate to them about value and just, I suppose, speed of thought and speed of work and efficiency, that is it more along those sort of lines than risk taking?
Yeah, I think there's been a big kind of cultural shift, certainly in how we work and how we collaborate, that then is directly benefiting the clients in our agility. So we're kind of shifting to working a lot more collaboratively in tools like Teams, where we're having quite open conversations on the client project. And it really then means we're providing a much quicker response to clients, because people are cited on all the discussions that may have been had as part of the wider engagement. So I don't think it's risk taking so much as kind of that collaboration, breaking down the silos, kind of real-time working and knowledge sharing, which is really having an impact.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, are you the same? Have you noticed that sort of breaking down those sort of silos and how clients are benefiting from that? We talked about it earlier, didn't we? Collaboration, consistency. Especially if you're like a global business, being able to break that down using digital. Are there any sort of hard examples of that, or just generally is that something you've noticed? It's
definitely something I've noticed, Steve. And I think particularly in accounting firms, we've historically been quite guilty of having audit, tax, consulting, etc. But actually, particularly with analytics, we've noticed that opportunities to deliver better insight to our clients often come at the intersect of service lines and not just within them. So definitely having communities of interest, etc., within the business around topics like automation and analytics has allowed those ideas to flow across service lines. And I think that relates to your point about cultural change too, because we're now hiring people who want to build a digital career within the firm. So regardless of whether they might sit in audit, tax or whatever, and they won't necessarily go through an audit qualification, for example, but those parts of our business need people with digital skills to help us to continually improve and digitize those services. So culturally, that's a whole new type of person, if you like, that's joining the person, often with a different type of mindset, and they require different career development opportunities too.
Yeah, we'll go on to the sort of talent. I mean, Simon, that point about data and insights, I suppose that's one of the biggest benefits, isn't it, to clients of this any digital investment, is what it can do, what it can tell you to help service clients better.
It can do. I mean, Tom made a very good point, though, is if it's not planned as effectively as you can, perhaps use some prototyping and extrapolate out, you can be deluged, and that in itself is a risk, because you end up with slower decision making because you have too much, and you haven't kind of set the right boundaries and scope early on, and you just end up collecting a lot more data and then wondering what to do with it. So if we think about some of the envisioning tools that are now available to help you look at what are you trying to achieve, how quickly, and what would be, again, those incremental steps to success, you can build some smaller models. And that's one way. It's not guaranteed, but that's one way to try and avoid that, and try and work within small units first before you sort of unleash it on the whole organization.
Yeah, that's good. So you're saying small wins, really, not expect to change the world overnight, but actually just you're always scraping at the surface here, aren't you, with digital investment in small improvements?
Always. I mean, everybody has to have a strategy. There has to be a long game, and there has to be that strategic thinking. But we will make mistakes along the way. We will end up with, hey, we've got too much data in this area now, and how did that happen? When we move to the next area, let's try and learn from that and plan a little bit better. Meanwhile, let's clean up what we've just created. So yes, the quick wins are great because they then justify making the next step, breaking down the next silo, or looking at the next process. But it has to be towards a long-term goal. It has. If you lose that vision of the long-term goal, you'll never get to that. But it is small steps. It's very difficult because the larger the whole digital change is, back to everybody's points, the harder it then is to convince everybody to adopt it and really embrace it and use it every day.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, how do you, that long-term goal that Simon talks about, having that strategy, how easy is that to do? I mean, because obviously you're investing for the different reasons we talked about, collaboration, efficiencies, etc. But I mean, what is the long-term goal?
Yeah, well, I think for us, we talk about people, product, profits. And if you try and focus on kind of in that sequence, then you typically get a better sequence. I mean, goal setting is a whole kind of topic in itself, right? And I think is one of the really critical elements, and thinking about the right people that you're setting those goals with, and then the right goals. For us, and some of the learnings that we certainly have, some things to think through are, one is trying taking it out of some of the kind of annual budgeting, because we can often get tied up with our longer term transformation that is typically multi-year with our kind of annual performance and delivery, and those two things need to be complementary, but sometimes you need to make sure they have a slightly different perspective. And then it's going back and looking at your key leaders. And again, digital transformation isn't just technology and operations leaders. You've got to think about who are those people who are going to be leading your teams and your clients through that change. So your client leaders, your people leaders, your business leaders, and thinking about what the right goals and incentives are to get in place with those key advocates, influencers who will have impact across your business.
Yeah, and also, how do you work with the clients to sort of plan your strategy there? Because obviously they just want to ensure that they're getting a good service from you, they're getting the whatever they want. How do you collaborate with your clients, I suppose, to ensure your ongoing strategy? Because that must evolve, it must change when it comes to your digital goals.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things which I think we always remember is digital transformation is never done, right? I mean, because the very nature of the things that we're looking to deploy, that landscape is changing, whether it's the technology and the tools. We try and bring our clients into that conversation. So we have with our larger clients deep partnerships, and we will work with them to co-create what our strategy should be, and we'll understand where they're trying to get to, and what are the goals they need to achieve through their marketing activities, which ultimately is what we're delivering, and then we'll build that into kind of help co-create our digital transformation roadmap, and that could end up as simple as some requirements and some of the tools we're building, or it could be something more structural, which is how we shape and structure our teams. And so we'll try and bring them in and try and share, and then as we're going through the sales cycle of winning, retaining clients, talking to them about our transformation, talking about what we want to do and how we want to go is critical. And all our clients are transforming too, as well, which is the other thing we should remember too. Everybody is transforming in some way. And so if we understand the journey our clients are transforming on, and indeed some of the services that we offer is helping our clients transform, you then start to build a kind of synergy whereby your clients' needs and your clients' transformation is intertwined and linked to your own transformation. Yeah,
I think that's really important and really interesting point, isn't it, Amy? I mean, for you as a partner in digital transformation at Grant Thornton, I suppose, you have to be aware, don't you, of how your clients are transforming digitally, and so you can have that synergy that Tom talks about. How does that map out with your strategy and how you sort of partner with clients, Amy?
We're very much kind of sharing our journey when we're talking to clients, because I think we're kind of progressing in parallel, probably, and facing the same challenges. So we're really keen to kind of share what we're learning, the benefits we're seeing from our own change process, and how that we can then relay that to help support our clients as they're along the way. And kind of conscious, we need to be running almost at the same speed, ideally ahead of them, but also not running too fast, that we're kind of looking to deliver products and solutions that actually they're kind of not ready for or won't be helping their business in the short term. So very much really key to keeping that dialogue so that we're moving at a good speed together.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, is there ever, if you're not running at the same speed as your clients, and how do you manage that in terms of like your own, what you're trying to do and how you're still servicing clients if they aren't maybe as buying into digital as maybe you are? Does that hold everybody back, and can you persuade them, or how do you work in partnership in those situations?
I mean, Amy's definitely right. To be credible talking to a client about their digital journey, you've got to be doing it to yourself and bringing that experience to bear. I think that with regard to, all our firms have got hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of clients, and you'll have the full gamut there of very digitally advanced clients with ones that are, much more of laggards, etc. in that space. And when it comes to, wanting to work with them online, for instance, you do have to bear in mind, of course, there's going to be some organizations or individuals that won't want necessarily to be pushed to use the latest technology with their business advisors. And we do have to be mindful of that. That said, I think that's probably a conversation that banks were having about their customers 15 years ago when they were launching online banking, and now we all use it, or nearly everybody. And I think that's where we'll be in a few years' time, is interacting with your business or professional services advisor is going to be online, or at least online plus face-to-face. And that's where we're going to get to. So I don't think we can let a few organizations that might be late adopters of these technologies slow us down. We've just got to get there.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel, how can it help you sort of win customers, I suppose, by showing the future, what's going to happen, to pick up on Chris's point, that what expectations are and how they're going to be interacting with you? I suppose it's a good look, isn't it, that if they can see that their services provider is actually investing and is ahead of the game and maybe an early adopter of some of this technology.
Yeah, I mean, our customers, let's face it, they're focused on their own business. And, for us to go in from a technical professional services background, they want to see that we've thought about how to transform the back office, how to transform what we do to make their life simpler, ultimately for them to focus on their own move forward position. So a lot of, we've attracted customers recently by showing them the investments that we're making, the journey that we're going on, because that shows them that we're a company that's not going to stand still and we're going to continue to invest in our own processes. But at the same time, our existing customers, Tom mentioned earlier, it's really important that we share the journey with them, because with any transformation, you're going to get things that work, things that don't, and sharing that gives you that space to be able to try things out and make sure that they're on board and they're going to adopt the things that we move forward with. But it's certainly benefited us to demonstrate externally to future customers the levels of investment that we're making, because, as I say, they're keen to work with people who are investing to look forward.
Yeah, I mean, Simon, the point about sort of co-sharing, working together over longer term, I suppose we're talking about that longer term relationship, client relationship. This is part of that whole conversation, isn't it?
I think it is, and I'm really interested in other people's experiences here. We're definitely seeing that organisations are more willing to share their plans. So when they're in the past, where they may have come to us and said, "We'd like you to develop a solution for this particular problem," it would be in a bit of a vacuum outside of what they were thinking more strategically. But now I think people are seeing that because everything will become joined up, everything will be sharing data. When we then ask them the question, well, how does this fit in longer term? We're not being blanked or stonewalled or kept in the dark. And that helps us design things properly for the future, whether it's us working on those future solutions or not. And I'm really interested if everybody else is feeling a more open dialogue with more customers in the last year or two.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Tom, when you've got a broad range of clients who are all doing things at different speeds, you have to obviously manage that and be mindful of what their speed, I suppose, and how you can flex what you do. What's happening there?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. So we have a broad range of clients, and that could be geographically, and their scale. We've got clients who are large, operating in many countries. We've got some clients who are operating in just one country. And so our approach to our digital transformation, we've got to build in enough flex to how we work and the solutions that we build and deploy, so that we can build around our clients, because there isn't going to be one size fits all. And that's really important. And that's been, back to one of the earlier questions, getting our stakeholders and thinking about why we're doing this. For us, certainly, it's been a really important message that there isn't a one size fits all answer to some of our digital transformation. We need to build the right level of flex, and I'll stress that the right level of flex. You don't want to be totally flexible, but each week we can't be totally fixed either. And so we want to have a core infrastructure of some of our platforms, but then we've got the ability to build custom solutions around our clients. Because our clients will have their own way of working. Our clients will have their own digital technologies that we might need to integrate with. And so for us, it's about understanding for our key partners and key clients, what are those levers that we need to pull, where are the elements that need to be slightly more common and standardized, but where have we got to have some flex that we can build around our clients and make sure we've got one partnership with each of those clients.
Yeah. And is that easy on a global basis as well, or not? Does it harder?
I wouldn't say it's easy. And I think a lot of these things is a matter of prioritization, right? I think one of the challenges with all digital transformation is the pace and the prioritization you make. So these things will take time to build the right flex, to build the right approach. You need to make sure you go into this understanding what those priorities are and what the right pace is to deliver that. So it's not easy. As I said earlier, we're on a multi-year program for a number of our initiatives, and some of those may never finish, because by the time you start to get to what you think done looks like, the next challenge is coming from one of our clients. We talk a lot about Web 3.0 and some of the kind of the interesting things that are coming out of that now. That's starting to build into our planning around what platforms we need to build next to allow us to work with our clients as they start to develop their business models.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, do clients expect more from you now, and are they looking for other things? I don't know, around, I know they'd expect more transparency, more reporting. They expect more of you in terms of what they get from you because of the investment, and because we talked about, they know that you're working more efficiently. What are the pressures there?
I think one thing they definitely expect is the ability to be able to drill down and dissect our reports and our insight much more. So rather than just, producing a PDF flat file report, the ability to present it online and the ability for them to, slice and dice that information, whether that be a piece of diligence work, an audit, or a tax report, or whatever it happens to be. So I think that that goes along with providing services online. That ability to be able to provide an interactive service back to clients is definitely an expectation. And I think there's opportunities that expectation presents back to professional services providers, in particular for new revenue streams, subscription-based sources of revenue, as well as the more traditional ways of pricing, such as charging by the hour and fixed fee. So I think those expectations around working online, having interactive insights presented back to them, also present opportunities for our sector too.
Yeah, I mean, Amy, is that true? I mean, is it like, it is true, but in terms of how you maybe used it, in terms of, they expect more from you, but there are these other revenue opportunities for the providers to actually use digital to work closely with clients who can see value. They don't mind paying for those extra services. Is that what you're witnessing as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And clients are quite open to kind of trying things with us. We're doing proof of concept on areas where they're like open banking, and kind of how can we help unlock value from that together as part of the engagements that we're doing. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and Dan, for you, is that as well unlocking joint value, isn't it? Because everyone likes to, if all parties can win here in terms of using digital to improve everybody's business, is that something you are seeing too?
Yeah, I think there's an expectation that customers can see the data that we provide, and we provide that quite transparently. That, as Chris said, they can drill into whatever level of detail they want. But obviously the benefits that come from that investment, obviously customers also look to benefit from that. So whether that's price changes or service improvements, productivity, whatever comes on the back of the investments that we make, I think, one, it helps us, and two, we've got to demonstrate why and what the value is to either our current or future customers to either attract or to retain or to just promote the value I said earlier that shows that we're an innovative company that's continuing that investment model.
Great, thank you. I also wanted to move on to another area, really looking at what all of this means to people working in professional services, because it's always been based on human expertise, hasn't it? And now we're talking a lot about data and AI, whether it's the automation, whether clients are thinking, well, hang on, where's the expertise? Is it within the machinery and the digital technology, or is it still in people's heads? Simon, what about that thing? I mean, has it changed the sort of people that will come into professional services? Does it mean people already there have got to learn new skills? And do you need to reassure clients at all that they've still got real human experts at the end of all of this?
There has been a shift. I mean, if you look at us as a systems integrator, you could take something simple and say, I think for most IT services businesses, if you want to put it crudely, there used to be a good business in building server estates for applications, which of course now there isn't. So that's forced people to move and migrate their own skills and grow forward. The other thing we've seen is more people, because the digital tools are there and some of the core work can be done automatically or digitally, where we're seeing more people joining our services industry from other industries, because that's the expertise. It's the understanding of other businesses, industries, and how lessons can be learned and propagated across other organizations that's where the intrinsic experience now sits, rather than some of those core technical activities that are gradually being eroded or taken away altogether.
Yeah, can it mean sort of skill gaps? Is it hard to find the people you need, Simon? Because if everyone's digital transforming at the same time, is it hard to find the right people?
I think certainly most of our industries, there's a huge skill shortage. The technology accelerates, it's changed constantly. Even people who really have an appetite to upskill and change skills, it takes a period of time. And a world coming back from COVID in many cases seems to have decided that technology is the answer. So there's faster decision making and a deluge of demand. And it's understanding how we can utilize the platforms that exist to give higher value and let our people deliver the higher value services and experience and expertise as quickly as possible. So we're being really pushed to have to adapt to that.
Yeah, Amy, is that something you're seeing? A couple of things: transferable skills, and maybe what's happened to human talent now in terms of people, relying on digital technology or feeling it's going to replace their knowledge, and for clients thinking, well, hang on, who are the experts here? What's happening with you? Is it something you have to be careful to communicate effectively?
I think, ultimately people by people. So we're really trying to look at it around, well, how can we make sure that our people have then got, amazing technology and tools sitting behind them so that they can provide even more value to our clients. But that brings with it a real need for kind of a different skill set. And I think, Chris talked about it earlier, that taking on board people with, very different career paths that are focused very much on digital and data. So it's definitely, we're predicting huge kind of skills gaps on this going forward, and we need to be growing our talent and growing it right away for where the future is going to be headed, and the future that we're going to be needing, the future skills we're going to be needing, but then also balancing that with, we need to maintain that diverse perspective, and there's still a place for that the more traditional thinking, and we need to be complementing it rather than replacing it. So I think it's just a natural evolution that we're going to be seeing everywhere.
Yeah, and how are you doing that, Amy? Because it ties in what we were saying before about this long-term plan in digital, and I suppose the people side, we've talked about the culture side. How do you make sure that the investment in people goes alongside the investment in the technology?
So we're doing it through kind of our training schemes, and there's all the digital elements within there, and then also kind of specialist areas. We've got a kind of, Chris talked about communities of interest, communities of practice, centres of enablement. We're actually building up those skill sets and connecting the skills that we've got sitting kind of scattered across our business, and really bringing it together to give it a lot more so they can leverage off one another a lot more and create really clear career paths for what is actually, quite a new skill set within a traditional kind of professional services firm.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel, with the culture changing, digital changing, it affects the business model. We've had the pandemic. People want to work differently. So what is the people story here going forward alongside the digital tech for your business?
I think tech's a big enabler. Amy mentioned about inclusion there. So, we've got a whole diverse kind of group of people that can now be enabled to do, work with us through technology. So we can leverage experience in the field using things like VR and augmented reality to train apprentices or people out there in the field that can leverage that knowledge bank, but also can open the door for people with different skills using tech to do maybe some of the low-level activity, which means our people can start to provide insights. And the tools, exactly Amy's point, the best tools enable people to be their best. But I think it's really important that we utilize this as much as we can to yes, attract a different group of people, but hopefully using the simple tools, whether it's Teams or VR or Zooms or whatever it is that we do, to enable a different demographic as well to get into the industry.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, for you, does it mean hiring different people than you might have done 10 years ago?
In part, and we want to, I think Dan touched on this, get as broad range of skills and background into our business as possible, simply because that helps with innovation and driving new ideas into our business, as well as it being the right thing to do in its own right. But it does have direct benefits when it comes to innovating. And I think maybe we should touch on that, because certainly it's very important to us and for many of our clients, is you can't drive digital transformation without a proactive innovation program as well, because it's got to be bottom up as well as top down. You've got to really harness all the minds in your business. And Amy, of course, was right when she said that people buy people in the services sector, but people enabled by technology. And all these people, I think, have got an opportunity to contribute to certainly our own organization's digital direction. I'm sure everyone represented here would say the same. It can't be top down. You've got to have schemes and things like hackathons, and we've got sprints and things where we try and tap into people's ideas for how we can improve our service delivery and the way we work.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, innovation, Chris is bang on, isn't he? I mean, because people who work within your companies want to be innovative and clients want you to be innovative. So I suppose, and you need people who can be innovative and can collaborate with each other. So for you, same question for you, really, with those points, has it changed the sort of workforce, the people you're hiring, and have you seen a evolution of that workforce compared to maybe 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I guess there's a few points that spring to mind. First is the old, Amara's law of overestimating the short term, underestimating the long term. I think we all fall into that trap of understanding what is changing in the next 6, 18, 24 months, and then what's changing slightly longer term. We are seeing a change in skills and a change in ways of working. And our digital transformation is definitely acting as a catalyst to allow our teams to be more integrated. We've got much more sort of borderless teaming across our kind of markets, which is brilliant, and definitely allows a different relationship, a better relationship with our clients. We're also then investing in our digital transformation to help improve the workflows and data, etc., which allow, I think as Amy was saying, allow our teams to focus more on some of that kind of value activity for our clients, taking some of the perhaps previously sort of admin or mundane activity away from our team members, which just allows them to do more work for our teams. I think in parallel, though, looking at the longer run, it's critical that businesses like us, and the onus is absolutely on us, identify and invest in those future talents. So yes, we are investing in what we've called Web 3.0 technology, so SMEs, so blockchain, crypto, metaverse kind of stuff. We've established a gaming practice, so that's providing marketing and advertising solutions within gaming for our clients. And that requires you to bring together some people who already work for us, but then also bring in a new type of talent. And then there's the obvious of data, kind of analytics and kind of ML type resources we're bringing in. But yes, we're changing our investment profile of talent, and it's a balance of, I say, retraining and helping existing people develop new skills, as well as bringing in others externally who perhaps bring a different skill.
Yeah, building on that, I mean, Simon, it is difficult, isn't it, to understand the sort of skills that you have internally, what people's digital skills from outside the workplace may be, and being able to track those and where training needs to be, Amy's point, where you do need to invest in training, or where you might not be using someone's skills to their full potential. How tricky and how difficult is that in professional services?
For us, and I can't speak for everybody, if we could unlock all of the skills and experience that all of our staff had, somehow capture that and then be able to filter it, I think the right skills, right place, right time, right objective model that we certainly look at will be vastly easier. We've made some incremental steps in that direction, but it really is quite tricky because it requires people to input. Back to Tom's point about data and so on. People have got to input the data about themselves into something and understand what the value in that is. Now, ideally, the value is that they end up working on projects that are going to really excite them and enthuse them and allow them to be innovative, and that fit their past experience, so they can bring value. That in itself is a huge piece of digital work to do as a professional services business and get it right. And I'm not going to say we're perfect, but we're moving in that direction, because if we think now that it is going to be about the high value, it is going to be about high value insights and innovative thinking and so on, we have to be able to capture that and really align it as best we can.
Just to build on that, I think, and I fully agree, I think this is where technology becomes the catalyst and enabler for that, because you can build the technology, right, to enable that teaming, and to your point, you can get people to enter their data about past projects and We really want to encourage that sort of gig working internally, people working on projects and surfacing the skills of the tens of thousands of people we've got. But that's as much a cultural and people change as it is a technology change. And so I think that's when technology becomes the enabler and the catalyst. Then that comes as much about how do you set the tone from across the business in terms of how we want to work as an organization around our different countries and teams and functions and service lines, and encourage that different way of working perhaps than we've had previously.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to finish off with asking you all one question for your own sort of businesses, really. What the main benefit has been for you guys as businesses from investing in digital. I know it's an ongoing conversation, and we've said it's never done. But I mean, Daniel, starting with you, if there's one or two benefits you could say, which maybe other people could learn from, the big wins, I suppose, what would they be from the investment you've made, despite all the challenges we talk about?
We touched on them already in some ways, but the biggest is enabling our people. So we've definitely enabled us to be more productive, which inevitably enables us to look at price, and it makes people happier in their role because they're not dragged down by process. That's been our biggest win and biggest opportunity. And then the point on being able to use different skills and diversity and how to include more people through tech. Certainly COVID's accelerated that, but that's been a big win for us as well, something we're really going to push as we move forward.
Yeah, and Chris, same question to you. What has been the big wins, I suppose? What's been the big change to the business of what you've done so far?
I mean, I think it's hard to disagree with Dan's point around the big benefit in people businesses, which at the end of the day we all are, being to our people, more varied careers, more interesting day jobs, taking away the admin through increased use of automation. Those things are huge, and we've still got a long way to go to realize the benefits from that, frankly. But I think also, I think the benefits to our clients, are also very significant, and we're starting to see a lot of interest in online analytics, online ways of working, as have been mentioned, and clients want that. We touched on the reasons, partly being the pandemic and accelerating those ways of working. But I think there's significant benefits to the way we deliver value to clients too from digital. Yeah,
and then Tom, same to you. And also maybe you could comment on what your advice would be to maybe companies who are listening to this and thinking, actually, we need to get down that road a bit faster. What your advice would be. So what have been the big wins for you, and what would be your maybe couple of bits of advice for other people?
Sure. So I think broken record time in terms of kind of biggest wins. I think the impact and experience on our people and clients. I mean, for us, the digital transformation is absolutely allowing us to be a more integrated business, and that is really important for us. So we are and continue to be much more integrated as a business around the world in our different teams, and it's also allowing us to rebalance effort from our teams away from some of the more internal tasks and more back to those kind of value innovation types activities that obviously our clients are paying us for. In terms of advice, I think for me the things that come top of mind are think about this in its holistic and long run nature. I think digital transformation is not technology and operations, it's a business transformation, even if it's enabled by technology. And the more you can link the digital transformation to your business and your clients and the purpose that you have for those, then you're able to get your people along the journey, because ultimately any digital transformation is about people and clients. And if you start with the impact on your clients and your people and how that links to what you're trying to do for them as a business, then you should be able to hang your digital transformation off that much more easily and drive change much more effectively across the business.
Yeah, great. And Amy, I know it's hard to come on, and for you and Simon, as everyone else has said the key points, but I don't know if you want to add to that, and if you would have a word of advice, because you're very experienced in this area, what you would say to others.
Yeah, I guess definitely agree with everything that's been said so far. In respect of advice, I think I'd say two things. One is around kind of really unlocking the power of the community. So we've got all these people and they've got brilliant ideas and they've got brilliant skills. So how do you kind of give them the right tools so they can create automations themselves that the firm can leverage, and kind of make sure that they've got a route for their ideas so that we can feed it into the pipeline of the wider activity. And secondly, data, and kind of data is the key to unlocking the value of technology. So getting it the right governance over your data, kind of really capturing it in the right way, in the right place at the right time, so that you can unlock the advanced capabilities like kind of AI, machine learning, the real automation that technology can give us.
Thank you, Amy. And Simon, final word to you then around, I mean, Amy touched on things like AI, which is a key area, isn't it? Managing your data, which you touched on earlier. What have been the real successes for you at Hitachi Solutions, and what would your advice be to other people who are maybe not as far down the road as you are?
Sure. Well, no. Firstly, thank you to everybody for contributing. But I think for us, it would be look for those quick wins, and don't be afraid to try things and get a few things wrong early on, and learn from them, and then try again, because the tools and the experiences that are out there now do allow that quick learning and that quick failing in a pretty risk-free fashion, because you can park it away from your day-to-day business.
Fantastic. Yeah, everybody, thank you very much. That was really interesting debate. So you've been listening and watching the Why Professional Services Companies Must Invest in Digital Transformation roundtable, brought to you by Raconteur and Hitachi Solutions. So thank you again to my panel: Chris Knowles, Dan Guest, Tom Amy's Cole, Amy Smart, and Simon Drake. Thank you very much, everybody.